I'm Neil Cummings. My magic moment's going to be horribly pragmatic in comparison to the last presentation. So I'm not going to talk about transacting, although this is the background to the thing I'm going to talk about. This is a big market that you've heard a little bit about today. I'm going to talk about this thing. So this is a jig, and it's a jig for producing the elements to make the stalls. And I tried to think a little bit about what that jig is. So it's made from recycled components. So at the end of a degree show, they just trash thousands of pounds worth of materials. So we've taken that material and we've made this jig. So a jig is a custom-made tool to coordinate components and the actions of people, is a kind of definition that I've come up with. And I was interested in what this jig could do because watching people use that jig was extraordinary. It was very, obviously it didn't come from nowhere. There was a lot of planning and design that went into the structure that the jig was going to facilitate. But the jig was collaboratively made, so a whole group of people put that jig together out of leftover pieces of wood. And the jig enabled anyone, literally anyone, who had an hour spare or had a week to spare to start to contribute and start to produce the elements for the market. So it had an interesting function, I thought, the jig, like some kind of protocol that could allow someone that knew how to cut and screw and fix, and people that didn't, to work together and to produce something that none of them knew necessarily the whole design of. It allowed people to swap skills. It allowed people to teach one another. So people could come who hadn't seen the jig, and within 2 minutes someone else could teach them how to use the jig, and then they could start contributing to the community. And so from these disparate actions, we began to build these composite components that could be assembled to build the stalls for the market. So that's one of the legs being produced. So this is, I began to think this jig is a really interesting thing. That it could, you don't need to know what it is you're doing. You just need to follow out the protocol that the jig enables you to do. So you can have a disparate intention. You can think, I'm contributing to the common good. I'm building something fantastic. Or you could think, oh, I've got an hour to spare and I'll just screw this thing down because it's quite pleasurable to do. You could have varied abilities. You could be a very skillful carpenter, or you could know nothing. And you didn't need to be coordinated in time either, because you could work for an hour, you could work for an afternoon, on different days, in different times. You could work individually. Oh. This is a group of people who are called Good Gym. They do good and they exercise. One of the things they decided to do was to come to help us assemble the stalls. So these people turned up, and within 5 minutes they produced 7 stalls. And they coordinated very quickly because it's very easy to instruct people how to participate. And you can see that this coordinated labor, this coordinated generosity, this coordinated gift giving was producing this extraordinary range of public resources. So I began to think of how this jig is a kind of protocol for the production of different kinds of assemblies, one of which could be a kind of community. And Ezio was encouraging us to think of this particular moment of encounter. So for me, the jig was the thing that facilitated the moment of encounter. So important for producing communities. Yeah. So these are the things the jigs are producing. There were 4 different kinds of jigs producing 3 different kinds of legs. 5 different jigs and producing 2 different lengths of truss.
1 minute.
1 minute, just as well, because I'm out of time. I'm out of things to say, really. So I thought a jig is this sort of cooperating process. It's a thing to produce a community, a communis, something that is shared but not necessarily understood by all the components that are participating. And it produced all of that and much more. It produced the community of the day, it produced the community in the fabrication, and in a way it's still producing. It's producing me and this event now. So the jig for me was a phenomenal tool. Thanks.
Thanks, Neil.